Alright everyone, welcome back to another video of The Dimensionalist. Um, Today's topic is about how and why in the future there will be robots and comparable and close to an exact possibility as the androids of the movie Terminator, Terminator 2, of both the Terminator and the Terminator cyborg robots, however you want term it, from the future that was fighting Terminator and Terminator 2, down to robots being able to damaged and not heal themselves, to be damaged and reform themselves, like the one that had uh, kept reforming itself and being damaged. Um, Things we need to look at to know this is possible is first, um, they have robots nowadays, of course, to make one human size. Of course, the robot would be incredibly heavy to take damage. I'm talking about the one that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in Terminator 2. Take bullet shots, of course. Uh, Complete body would be made of the most strongest of element. That being whatever it need to be coated in or armored in. I would say a whole android being uh, metallic in nature and armored with diamond on the outside, so it wouldn't be damaged physically. I would choose that element. As you notice, when Terminator was being attacked in Terminator 2, he was being damaged, but he didn't have the form to heal or to reform its matter. Um, so there's cyborgs. I mean, robots. Um, Robots being possible, since we have robots now, making a human one, um, a human shaped humanoid body, two arms, two legs, a head. Its eyes would see and interpret, its vision, and scanning the area. Robots can detect items and things. There's computers now that detect facial recognition, fingerprint scanning, things like that. Computers run through database processes, so those things can be embedded in the robot itself program. Because you have to think about robot is a program. It's a computer acting as a human. A robot is now. You gotta know that that's possible to that extent. How it would interact with reality would be, for instance, Google Google Maps would make it very efficient for the robot, and a GPS, and wireless connectivity, being have a GPS on it, have a Wi-Fi connection to understand its location in Wi-Fi zones, instantly connect internet in multiple locations simultaneously. Have a broadband connection, 4G LTE connection. In the future, it might be 5G, 6G, and there might be some other concept of speed at that point embedded in the robot itself for it to pick up and interface with reality. Because Google Maps, if you know your car, where you go, your phone, it knows where it's at, the specific location down to almost the down to the decimal. So all robots got to do is have a GPS that those programs integrated with it, so when it's interfacing reality, it knows where to go. They already got robots to program to go across the room. A robot, all it needs is a lens. His eyes would use lenses like a camera, high definition 4K, to interface reality, facial recognition, zoom in, zoom out. It could analyze objects. Like I said, facial recognition. There's object recognition now. There's Google backwards image search, and an image that would automatically bring up results of images, because computer software, the way it's programmed, that can be programmed into an Android, also into a robot. So we got it down to uh, robots being real to the extent that they work. Okay, if they were to make one with facial recognition and stuff and integrate it with Google, it could be another step up to being real because it's GPS and where to go. If they went programmed to go across the street to this house or walk a mile, it would use its 2 feet. Of course, it would need to be very robotic and very bionic with humanoid features to make a direct step like a robot would. And of course, Terminator 2 was using a real human, but you knew he's a robot the whole time. But the exoskeleton of the robot, don't get me wrong, is the exact replica of a human. Its joints, way it moves, its hands. That's possible. They could build a machine like that. They got plastic skeletons they can make like that. All they can do is make a simulate one in this the way it could be, and complete metal, form and shape, all joints, complete robotics, programmed to move certain ways. Its eyes can be used to have 4K recognition, 4K definition of reality. That information is sent through a computer processor. That computer processor simulate the information. And of course, someone can control this robot and send it where it goes. But the robot and the machine must know once it has something in front of it that information is currently processing through light, because you need light and lenses and its reflection of light and light back into the eyeballs like humans. So in the processor, the machine's got to know what's going on in front of it. So it would know to do something because of a particular point of where it's at on and life using GPS, global position, global tracking, Wi-Fi, GPS, internet, and Google Maps has already mapped out the entire United States of America. And it would keep track and have an automatic upload database of its information automatically programmed into it, so no one would have to remotely control this being in whatever way. It's very possible to that extent for the being the android to become self to a certain extent, not necessarily feel emotions, but to act on its own, as into if but they would have to be programmed to go to a certain specific place and do specific things with its features, and it's moving its legs, its arms to grab something a specific location, to find an object and take it. That's very possible. Don't get me wrong. Um, uh, and it move at whatever speed, hopefully the speed of running, but we haven't got that down pat of the complete trigonometry of mapping out the complete movement, wind factor, gravity, its joints, and moving, and its weight of its body, its upward torso, its head, and its positioning of the complete programming of reality, where it's at, the GPS, the however it's connected to. Of course, it needs to be linked up to the internet at all points, so it can have something to interface with when it's programmed to do certain things. Because you remember the robot in Terminator 2 was programmed to go back and save John. Now down it to being that exoskeleton with that system, with that elaborate scheme being programmed, you would need a master programmer to do something like that. In robotics, and computer science would break down and mathematics would break down the complete uh, trajectory of how it needs to go, where it needs to go, the exact, and using its eyes and lens, but have cameras all over its body. The complete interface. You see, when we don't see just in front of us. You got to understand the robot's got to understand where it's at all points. It's got its skin. It should have senses. How to know it's grabbing something. It's got sensors too. Infrared could be integrated with it. Light, flashlight, something to give it optical night vision. Night vision in itself over the 4K 1080p view of reality, and then a program, every time it comes across a certain interface of a certain object, it can be integrated back into the processor to do and interact with something it needs to do sufficiently with whatever it may come across. How it's almost exactly possible for it to happen with a robot that can take damage and rematerialize itself would also be another a master construct of a program and matter. I've discussed in my other videos, hacking matter, the theory of hacking matter. Check out the book; it's on the internet. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but of course, the hacking matter is uh, uh, is taking a certain specific area of matter and enclosing it and adding and removing protons, neutrons, electrons until its some atomic mass, some atomic number becomes something different and becomes a completely different form of matter. So if something was to be damaged, it could reconstruct itself, and as long as it had other matter to construct itself with. So if it had a part of its body all made to rematerialize itself, it can take the matter of the air around and construct from the air around it, which is the air. Our atmosphere itself is made of protons, neutrons, electrons. It's just less dense than other matter. It does consist of matter and objects that the robot would need to rematerialize itself. If it was to damage its arm, it could take the elements, the periodic table elements, the oxygen, if it's humidity outside, the slight oxygenation and hydrogen that's in the air to rematerialize its arm through hacking matter, protons, neutrons, electrons. It would grab that matter and start to solidify it. It might be a long, very long process of going through to materialize that object. But if you check out theory of hacking matter at an electron scale, on an electron scale of the nanoscale, which is smaller than the microscopic scale, you can add, remove with electron charge, add, remove protons and neutrons, and adding and removing those numbers, you could definitely. So it would be electronic in its electrical field. It would create a vortex of energy, a magnetic force to pull in, and a vacuum to bring in and try to condense itself, the air, the object. Because I was thinking maybe it could grab an object and use that to rematerialize to build its own parts through a computer program, encasing it in a box maybe, or a rectangular shaped, because it's the polygonal, the hexagonal, the just regular three-dimensional box has to have a certain specific hold, and its specific programming and hacking matter to know that it can, whatever resources are available to create that matter. Like if it wanted to take, like I said, the air, or an object, it could use to, uh, if it had like some way to grab an object from the side of its arm to rematerialize its arm if it's damaged, and the build, if it's constructed in such a way, the robot is built in such a way that if it's damaged, the structure could pull itself back into its exact form by using, like I said, oxygen, carbon dioxide, uh, and the rest of the elements that are in the atmosphere to contain itself, and it would have to know to rebuild and construct itself in that way for it to go back to its original form. So that's how that's possible. It would take a master engineer, master computer science, and the complete manipulation of the periodic table of elements to get it to what element it needs to go back to when it's damaged, and know it's damaged, and for the robot itself to interface and know when that needs to be done, that needs to be done, because it's all computer program doing that. You got to remember that when it comes to that movie. And it was still interfaced to where it goes. So the whole thing wouldn't be if its brain is the processor and everything. The whole Android needs to be the entire, has multi processors and all the different locations, all interfacing and merging in its own interface in every single section of its body. So if it's damaged, it can remanipulate itself on that level. So the theory of hacking matter, along with, we have the science to build a robot, make it move a certain way, move across the room. That's possible. It's very possible. Robotics have got to the point of making a very small replica of a robot moving and with the exact joints configuration of the human being. So just keep that in mind, that that's very possible. You got to remember, what supermatching refraction is, invisibility, is using camera lenses, microscopic camera lenses, to pull one side of the light spectrum onto the other side of its object to make it come invisible. So you do some research on supermatching refraction, and for the robot, if itself wanted to be camouflaged, it would use its area under itself and be able to reflect the light that's below it, the objects below it, and bring that into its spectrum then. But that will be coming into shape shifting, more hacking matter, more manipulation of the matter. It's changing, it's shape shifting, it's moving its certain parts, joints, like a transformer in a sense. Because there's cars that pull out, do come in, like doors and things. It's like a door. One door opens, other door opens. If it goes this way, it can close this way, open that way. It's like that in a sense, but with a android wanting to stay in physicality to know it's programmed to do those things. I don't know, go as far as finding a person. It could robot, but it would go simulate and do facial recognition. Is this the person? Is this the person? And go through the eyes, the nose, the mouth, where the mouth's located, the ears where they're from the eyes to the nose, and complete scanning of that. So that's the android would have to know a specific date, to know how to interface with any and all objects and be programmed, and the universal life of everything, in order to be on a mission to actually be just like damn Terminator 2. I don't know about the whole time travel thing. Maybe I'll make another video about that, but just keep that in mind, that it could be possible within the next 100, 200, 300 years to 500 to 1,000 years from now, that we could have a robot that manipulates that can do those things with that specific amount of science. If they can make a movie of science fiction will become real. I don't care what no one says. A lot of stuff that's happened now is science fiction in the past, and everything's marvelous. Nowadays with technology, touch screens, move stuff here, voice recognition, robot voice recognition, talk to a robot, turn it off on. So you got to keep that in mind, that we're interface with sound, interface with light, interface with objects, interface with through its walking. It's got to be completely robotic. So yeah, y'all keep that in mind when it comes to robotics, computer science, and creating a program, an entity, a robotic being that can do those things. I'm gonna close out the video, everyone. I hope y'all enjoyed another video of the Dimensionalists. Keep that stuff in mind. Do your research. It's very possible it could happen. It's just taking a team of scientists, team of engineers, team of mathematicians, and computer science specialists on the master level to construct a being like that. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Thank you. Peace.